Last night's episode of The View witnessed an explosive confrontation when Ricky Gervais declared, "I'm done with this show," and walked off set after Whoopi Goldberg accused him of being cruel under the guise of comedy and suggested his atheism made him incapable of understanding human compassion. The British comedian didn't just defend his style of humor. He delivered a surgical dissection of Hollywood hypocrisy that left Whoopi's moral authority in ruins and ABC scrambling to control the damage. But what started as promotion for Gervais's new stand-up special would reveal something darker about how The View silences voices that challenge their comfortable narratives. The ABC studios were tense from the moment Gervais arrived. The 63-year-old comedian was there to discuss his new Netflix special exploring mortality and meaning, but The View's producers had prepared something entirely different. A production assistant later revealed that Whoopi had specifically instructed them to confront him about his mean-spirited atheism and expose why he thinks cruelty is funny. The warm-up audience coordinator had been telling people to expect fireworks and warning them that things might get uncomfortable. Multiple staffers expressed concern about the planned ambush, with one senior producer reportedly telling Whoopi, "He's going to destroy you if you go there," only to be dismissed with, "I've handled bigger egos than his." Therefore, when the cameras rolled, Gervais was walking into a carefully orchestrated attack on both his comedy and his worldview. The show opened with typical hot topics discussion, but Whoopi made several pointed comments about comedians who've forgotten the difference between humor and hatred, and people who mock faith because they have none. Gervais waited backstage, his characteristic smirk in place, though staffers noticed him taking notes while watching the monitor. His publicist would later reveal that Gervais had actually predicted the exact line of attack, telling his team, "Watch, they'll come at me about atheism and claim I lack empathy." When Whoopi finally announced, "Please welcome Ricky Gervais," he walked out with deliberate casualness, his entire demeanor suggesting someone who'd already won a game others didn't know they were playing. "Ricky, welcome to The View," Whoopi said with forced warmth. "Your new special is certainly generating conversation. That's the point of comedy, isn't it? To make people think," Gervais replied, already setting his trap. "But there's thinking and there's hurting. Don't you think you crossed the line from comedy into cruelty?" Whoopi asked, jumping straight to her attack. "Interesting question from someone who defended Roman Polanski," Gervais said casually, taking a sip of water. The studio went dead silent. Whoopi's face tightened. "That's not what we're discussing," she said. "Isn't it? We're discussing moral boundaries in entertainment. Seems relevant that you said drugging and assaulting a 13-year-old wasn't rape. But please, lecture me about crossing lines," Gervais continued calmly. Therefore, the counterattack was immediate and devastating. The other hosts shifted uncomfortably, knowing Whoopi's past statements were indefensible. But Whoopi tried to recover. "We're talking about your comedy, not my past comments," she said firmly. "Your past comments about defending a child rapist? Yes, let's definitely not talk about those while you question my moral compass," Gervais replied with his signature laugh. "You mock people's faith. You laugh at their beliefs. How is that not cruel?" Whoopi pressed, trying to change the subject. "I mock ideas, not people. There's a difference between challenging beliefs and defending pedophiles. One encourages thinking, the other enables abuse," Gervais said pointedly. Joy Behar tried to intervene. "Ricky, that's a bit harsh." "Harsh? She literally said a man who drugged and anally raped a child didn't commit rape. But I'm harsh for making jokes about imaginary friends in the sky." Gervais interrupted, his British accent making the brutality somehow more cutting. He stood up slowly, his movement casual but purposeful. "You want to discuss cruelty? Let's discuss the cruelty of using your platform to minimize child rape. Let's discuss the cruelty of making victims feel their assault wasn't real rape. That's actual harm, not hurt feelings over jokes," he said. "Sit down, Ricky. We're having a conversation," Whoopi said, her authority shaking. "No, we're having a hypocritical lecture from someone who's caused actual harm while pretending to be moral. I make jokes. You defended a predator. Which one of us should be ashamed?" Gervais asked. But then he revealed something that changed everything. You know what your former co-host told me? That you regularly shut down discussions about sexual abuse in Hollywood. That you've protected multiple abusers because they're your friends. Want to discuss that cruelty? He said. Whoopi's face went from anger to fear. That's a lie, she said weakly. Is it? Should we call Rosie O'Donnell? She's got recordings of you dismissing abuse allegations. But sure, let's talk about how my jokes are the real problem, Gervais replied. He turned to the audience, and this is where something important happens. Look, I know some of you are uncomfortable with direct truth, but there are people watching who've been silenced about abuse, who've been told their experiences weren't real enough. If that's you, share this moment. Comment your support for survivors. Like this video not for the drama, but to spread awareness that abuse is abuse, regardless of who defends the abuser. Your engagement might help another survivor feel heard. Sometimes sharing difficult truths helps others find their voice, he said directly to the camera. The audience response was mixed but powerful. Many applauded, others sat in stunned silence. But Whoopi, desperate to regain control, made things worse. You're just an atheist who doesn't understand compassion or forgiveness, she said, playing her final card. Gervais laughed genuinely. I'm an atheist who's raised millions for charity. You're a believer who defended a child rapist. Which one of us lacks compassion? He asked. Faith gives people hope, Whoopi insisted. And protecting abusers gives them permission. I'd rather destroy false hope than enable real harm, Gervais replied. He moved closer to her position. You know what's really interesting? You claim faith and compassion while defending the indefensible. I claim nothing while actually helping people. Your God didn't stop you from defending a pedophile. My atheism didn't stop me from caring about his victim, he said. You don't understand the complexity, Whoopi began. Of child rape? You're right, I don't understand the complexity. To me, it's simple. Adult drugs and rapes child equals monster. But please, explain the nuance I'm missing, Gervais interrupted. The sarcasm was devastating. Several audience members actually laughed despite the heavy topic. Sunny Hostin tried to help Whoopi. Ricky, people can grow and change from past mistakes, she said. Has she? Has she apologized to rape victims for minimizing their trauma? Has she acknowledged the harm of her statements? Or has she just hoped everyone would forget? Gervais asked. The questions hung unanswered. Whoopi couldn't respond without either lying or admitting fault. But Gervais wasn't finished. You want to know the difference between us? I punch up with comedy. You punch down at a 13-year-old rape victim. I challenge powerful institutions. You protected a powerful predator. I make people laugh while thinking. You made victims cry while suffering, he said. Stop, Whoopi said quietly. Why? Because it's uncomfortable? Because truth hurts? You didn't stop when that child begged. You didn't stop when victims asked for justice. But now you want mercy? Gervais asked. The brutal parallel silenced everyone. Whoopi's mouth opened and closed without sound. Gervais shook his head with genuine disgust. I'm done with this show, he declared. Not because you challenged me, but because you're a hypocrite who lectures others about morality while defending child rape. That's not a difference of opinion. That's a fundamental failure of humanity, he said. You can't just leave, Whoopi said desperately. Watch me. Just like that 13-year-old couldn't just leave when Polanski raped her. The difference is, I'm choosing to walk away from nonsense. She was trapped with evil. And you defended that evil, Gervais said. He headed toward the exit, then turned back. Oh, and that moral superiority you wrap yourself in? Everyone sees through it. You're not a moral authority. You're a rape apologist with a talk show. The only difference between you and the predators you defend is that you use words instead of drugs, he said. How dare you? Whoopi started to stand. How dare I? I'm not the one who said drugging and anally raping a child wasn't rape. That was you. On television. Multiple times. But yeah, how dare I bring it up? Gervais said with withering contempt. He looked at the other hosts. And all of you who sit there enabling her, you're complicit. You know what she said was monstrous, but you protect her because she's powerful. That's not sisterhood. That's cowardice, he told them. He walked off to mixed but significant applause. Many audience members stood and clapped. Others sat in shocked silence. The show went to immediate commercial. Within minutes, hashtag Gervais exposes was trending globally. The clip of him contrasting joke-telling with rape apology went viral immediately. Survivors of abuse shared their stories of being minimized and dismissed. But the real impact came from the resurfacing of Whoopi's actual statements about Polanski. Younger viewers who hadn't known about the controversy were horrified. The contrast between her moral positioning and her actual words was stark. The View returned from commercial without Whoopi. Joy Behar awkwardly explained she'd needed a moment, but everyone knew the truth. She'd been exposed and couldn't face it. The next day brought severe consequences. Survivor advocacy groups condemned The View for giving Whoopi a platform. Sponsors concerned with their image pulled support. The show faced its worst crisis in years. Whoopi attempted to address it the next day, but her response made things worse. She claimed Gervais had misrepresented her words, but social media immediately produced the exact quotes and video clips. The evidence was undeniable. Gervais's response was typically sharp. He tweeted, "I told jokes." She defended a child rapist. Yet I'm the controversial one. Hollywood morality in a nutshell. The tweet went viral with millions of interactions. It sparked a broader conversation about selective outrage and moral hypocrisy in entertainment. Whoopi had been exposed not just as wrong, but as dangerously hypocritical. ABC faced pressure to act. How could they keep someone who'd minimized child rape while positioning themselves as progressive? The network went into crisis mode. Meanwhile, Gervais's special saw massive viewership increases. His willingness to confront hypocrisy directly resonated with audiences tired of performative morality. He'd turned an attack on his comedy into exposure of actual harm. But the deeper conversation was about accountability. Gervais had shown that making offensive jokes and defending actual predators were not morally equivalent. That hurt feelings and minimized rape trauma were not comparable harms. The incident became known as the Gervais Reckoning. The moment Hollywood's moral pretensions were exposed by someone they dismissed as merely offensive. Universities taught it as an example of the difference between challenging ideas and enabling harm. Whoopi never fully recovered. Her moral authority, built over decades, crumbled in minutes. She remained on The View but was forever diminished, forever marked as the woman who defended a child rapist while lecturing others about morality. Years later, she would admit in her autobiography that Gervais had been right, that she'd been terribly wrong about Polanski. But the admission came too late, after years of doubling down and dismissing critics. But that night, all anyone saw was Ricky Gervais refusing to be lectured by someone who defended the indefensible. Refusing to accept that making jokes was worse than minimizing rape. Refusing to let hypocrisy hide behind fame. He'd walked off the show, but he'd walked away victorious. Not through cruelty, but through truth. Not through jokes, but through facts. He'd shown that sometimes the most offensive thing isn't comedy, but complicity. The empty chair he left represented more than his absence. It represented the void where moral authority should have been, the space where integrity was missing, the platform given to someone who'd failed the most basic test of humanity. And Whoopi Goldberg, who tried to paint him as cruel and immoral, was left sitting with her co-hosts, exposed as someone who'd used her influence to defend a child rapist while claiming moral superiority. The difference was absolute. Gervais continued making people laugh while thinking. Whoopi continued making excuses while deflecting. One had walked off a show. The other had walked away from basic human decency years ago. Everyone watching understood which departure actually mattered.